Today on the show, Franziska Bühler and Folini join Tanya, Janca, and me, Nancy Gariché, as they discuss their award-winning project, the OWASP ModSecurity Core Rule Set Project. ModSecurity is a web application firewall with open source code that is widely used in commercial products. The CRS project develops a set of generic rules for use with ModSecurity and other compatible WAFs. The CRS claims to be the first line of defense to protect against malign payloads such as SQL injections, cross-site scripting, remote command execution, and violations of the HTTP protocol. Keep watching to know more about the project and watch Franziska's demo. Oh, before we start, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate you. Don't forget to follow us everywhere you can and subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's do this.
Welcome to the OWASP DevSlop show. DevSlop, like sloppy DevOps, that is us. You're going to see some sloppiness today, probably. We are, so let's all introduce ourselves. So I'm Tanya, Janca, and this is Nancy Gariché. I think you should wave, Nancy. Can you hear me? Everyone?
Yes, I can. I feel like there was some audio in the back. Now it's all stopped.
Now it's all stopped? Okay, good.
Yes. I'm Nancy. Hello.
Awesome. She is also a project leader in the DevSlop project. And with us, we have two special guests. Would you two like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hello. This is Folini from Switzerland, from the CoralZ project. And with me is CoralZ's and DevSlop's Franziska Bühler.
So today I believe we're going to talk about two OWASP projects that work in combination, which you both have a part in and work on together. The Core Rule Set project, which is sort of links in with the ModSecurity project, right? Would one of you like to tell us about this?
Let me talk about this. The ModSecurity is a security module that fits into a web server, and then the CoralZ project is the rules that go on top of the ModSecurity engine, and they help you defend yourself against the risk of the OWASP top 10. So it's like a first line of defense where you not really trust your application 100%, where you think there might be bugs in the software, probably unfamiliar to many people out there, but there is actually software with bugs. And then it helps to have a first line of defense like the CoralZ, which gives you a nice open source web application firewall in front.
What's a web application firewall, or WAF? Can you explain what that is?
It is a device that you put between a browser and your web application. So the two talk HTTP together, and the browser could be an attacker attacking your web server. And the web application firewall sits inline and inspects the traffic going into your application and the responses being sent back to the browser. So it has a very good understanding of the protocol, and if it's well tuned, it also has a very good understanding of your application, and it knows what is good traffic, and it will be able to detect bad traffic or malicious attacking traffic.
How would you say that this is different from a regular firewall?
It's about the OSI layer. So network firewall, a typical firewall sits on the network layer. It looks at IP packages and TCP stack, while as HTTP way higher up is in the application layer, where the browser and the application talk to each other. And the standard firewall has no insight into that layer because it doesn't know about HTTP. And besides, nowadays, most applications are encrypted. And the network firewall doesn't have the encryption key. So it's entirely blind towards these HTTP requests. While as the web application firewall sitting on the web server has the encryption keys. This is very often where the encryption is terminated, so it sees the full traffic. Same concept, but on a different network layer.
Cool. Do you want to tell us about the Core Rule Set project? I believe you two are part of that project / are the project.
Yeah, the CoralZ project is one of the very old or venerable OWASP project. It was incepted in 2007 and came under the OWASP umbrella around 2010, I think. It got new management 3 years ago. So I'm one of the project leaders now, together with Walter Hopp from the Netherlands and Kame Sanders from upstate New York. And we relaunched the project in 2016, 17, released a milestone release, Coral Set 3.0, which was an overhaul and new way of running the rules. We fought a lot of false positives, which is, in brackets, the big pain of web application firewalls. So we got rid of most of the false positives, and we enlarged the user base massively. We have better documentation, and the project is really growing. We have like 10 or 12 active developers now, which is a very nice number for an open source project.
That's amazing. So, Nancy, did you have any other questions before we kind of let them take over the show?
Yeah, that's pretty neat. That's pretty clear for me. Thank you.
Cool. So I heard that you two wanted to show us some stuff.
No, you start. You start with stuff. You have a better understanding of the stuff. I'm only the moderator and the team lead, and I don't know about the technology at all.
Yeah, Franziska does all the techie stuff while the man does all the management stuff. That's how it usually is.
Okay, I will start to share the screen. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. Share screen. Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay. So as everyone knows, DevSlop has a GitHub repository.
I want everyone to know that.
Get better.
GitHub has an organization, DevSlop, and there we have many modules and repositories. And the one we are talking about today is Pixie CRS demo. That's a repository that combines Pixie and the core rule set. Pixie is the intentionally vulnerable web application written by Tanya and Nicole.
Well, Nicole did the heavy lifting.
Okay, Nicole. And what I did there is I put the WAF, the core rule set, in front of Pixie. I wanted to make a demo that is easy to start. You can just run one command and you have Pixie, a web application that is vulnerable, and you have the core rule set in front of Pixie, and you can play with both. You can play with a vulnerable web application, and you can see what the core rule set behaves like in front of Pixie. And that's what I would like to show today.
Cool.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So Franziska, who's doing all the technical work in our project, she's running now using her Apple computer.
Oh, is she going to call in too?
Of her Apple computer without an Ethernet interface, by the way, to our WLAN. Because we're in the attic of our house where it's nice, calm, and no children, no kids.
I've been there.
But we don't have Wi-Fi up here.
Oh.
And I was on the cable. That's why we used our computer, or my computer, but it doesn't run her Docker.
Okay.
So she's now going to the office, booting her Mac, joining the session, and then she's taking over her computer that is apparently running Docker. I'm more of the old school hardware guy, so no Docker here.
It's okay.
Yeah, I could show you my medieval stuff in the meantime,
Do you
because
want
it's here up in the attic.
Yeah, do you want to show us the helmet that you were showing us earlier?
As it happens, I have my helmet with me.
Reason
It's a big helmet.
All right, well, I guess if you put it on, you have to take off the headset then.
Okay.
Nancy's like, we are getting into so much trouble now. We're like, this will be a 30-minute show for sure. Tanya's not going to get us off track at all. Awesome. I think you have to close it though to get the full. Yeah.
And I'm putting the microphone underneath.
I feel like it's pretty badass.
Isn't it? Yeah, when things get stiff, a helmet comes in handy. Generally.
I feel like it kind of reminds me though of like networks that just do kind of the perimeter because all the rest of your body is exposed. There's like this little slit where your eyes are.
Actually, I use the helmet in some of my presentations where I'm linking medieval architecture, medieval military technology with modern IT servers. And when you close
Mike,
the helmet,
closer to mouth.
When I close the helmet like I did before, then you get a kind of a whitelisting approach. The whole head is protected, and the only entrance or the only attack surface, the attack window, is the eye slit. And that is very close to a whitelisting setup of a modern network firewall or a web application firewall.
I enjoy the analogy.
Oh, it's Franziska.
Hi, Franziska. Yay!
Everything looks great.
Okay, Franziska, want to share your screen?
Okay, handing over again.
Thank you, Christian. Okay, client. Oh.
Oh, I love it. The DevSlop show where analogies come to life.
Yeah.
Okay, we can see your screen. Excellent, this is going much better.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I already played a bit with the Coral set. I don't git clone again. I think we have already done that.
Okay.
I will just do a Docker Compose up. Okay, and now if we go back to the README, we see that we now have Pixie started, and we can call it on localhost port 8000, and we have Pixie started, the Coral set started, and we can call Pixie through the Coral set on port 8001.
Nice.
And we will now have a look how this looks like. Okay. That means that here we have Pixie, that's the application Pixie. And here we have the same application Pixie, but on port 8001, and that means that we are going through the Coral set.
Nice.
Through the application. Okay, maybe we should have a look at the Docker Compose file first. Huh? Okay. That's what we have already done. We started it already, and I've written it again here. To access the application, you can call this one, and to call the application through the Coral set, you can call localhost 8001. And I started the Coral set here with my ModSecurity Coral set container image on Docker Hub. We are currently working on integrating my changes into the official one, but it's taking some time. And here I configure the Coral set. I configure the listening port of my Coral set container. I have to configure the backend, that is Pixie in my case. And I can configure a paranoia level. We have 4 different paranoia levels, and we are working on paranoia level 1, that's standard installation. And then I can configure anomaly inbound threshold of 5 and anomaly outbound threshold of 4. And yeah, that means that this is a bit strict. Threshold is how hard are the decisions of the WAF. And with an anomaly inbound score of threshold of 5, we only have one critical message and we will already get blocked. And then we have more curl set variables. You can comment them in and configure them. We also have the possibility to add ModSecurity tuning. You can add volumes. And then at the end, I start Pixie's database and Pixie's application. And here we see that robots, that's Nicole's repository. Okay, that's what we have already started, and it is running here.
Hello, Pixie.
And now I would like to show, well, Pixie has many vulnerabilities. I'm currently writing on a blog post about, I want to show and describe every vulnerability of Pixie. Cool. And I would like to show how the curl set, what does the curl set with these attacks. And for today, I think we will show one vulnerability and what happens inside the curl set container or inside the curl set. I will log in with Pixie admin. No.
Yeah, no, don't save that password.
No. That.
That is now the second login.
Is when on the one that's protected and one that was...
I have a login.
One that is not protected, exactly. Mm-hmm. Which one is which?
This one is, do you see this?
Yeah.
This one, the normal Pixie, unprotected Pixie. And this one is protected Pixie. Yeah. 48001. And now I know that we have a vulnerability in the search box of Pixie. And yes, this is a reflected cross-site script vulnerability inside Pixie. That's very bad.
Bad Pixie, bad Pixie.
And now I would like to see what happens if we try the same search when Pixie is protected by the curl set. And hopefully, yeah, we will get blocked.
Nice.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay! Good work.
Yes. Someone could say that this has to be fixed in the application. Yes, for sure. But with the curl set, you have a quick patch in front of Pixie without changing and patching the code itself. So that's what is meant by the additional layer of defense. And now we will have a look what happened inside the curl set.
Cool.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we will go back to Pixie CRS demo, to our repository. And here I've written that to access the error log, this is only one example, of course, how to handle log files in containers. But you can, we will cat the Apache 2 error log inside the container. And we see now that we have 3 rules that were triggered by this attack. these are 3 cross-site scripting rules. This is one, and this is one. 3 rules that triggered, and each rule has the severity of critical. That means that each rule gives 5 points. So we have a total score of 15, and we see this in this error here. It says that our inbound anomaly score exceeded. We have a total score of 15, and we have seen in the Docker Compose file before that we have configured 5, threshold of 5, and now because we are higher, we get blocked.
That's
and
awesome.
That's the anomaly level, right, Franziska?
Sorry?
The 5 that we set as a limit, as a threshold, was that the anomaly level that you set, that we saw previously?
That was the anomaly inbound score.
Okay,
Threshold.
got it.
Yep, that was that.
What is the
We
outbound?
only need one rule to actually, we didn't need all 3 rules to trigger
No.
anything, right?
Yeah.
Just one would have triggered it.
Yeah, good thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. This is strict 5. You have one critical rule that is already blocked. Okay, and at the end you even have details. You see inbound score of 15. It was no ASCON injection, it was cross-site scripting, and all the other attacks were also set to 0, no other attacks, just cross-site scripting. Yeah, that is what I wanted to show.
What does the outbound threshold mean in the file? So inbound is 5 and then outbound was set to 4. What is that for?
Outbound responses are checked too, because in responses, especially if you have errors on your page, you get a lot of information from inside your company, and you don't want to share them with everyone. And if you have errors, you can block them. That is against data leakages and stack traces, and you don't want to show details in errors to attackers.
That is very cool. I like it. So that's the list of what it attacks against, or that it protects against: SQL injection, cross-site scripting, remote file inclusion, local file inclusion, remote code execution. What's PHP injection?
Okay. Attacks on the HTTP protocol, and we also have Java attacks covered.
Okay.
I think we have more than these, Christian.
No, I think these are the large groups, and the latest addition was the Java rules for all the struts and Tomcat vulnerabilities. That's namely what took out Equifax.
Nice.
The question about the logs, can you tell from what was triggered exactly where in your code you should go back and correct it? And should you spend actually the time to correct it if the WAF caught it?
You have the URI here in the error log. Franziska, could you highlight the URI perhaps? It is /search. It's towards the end of the message. And this gives an indication, and then afterwards you have the unique ID of the request. This links the individual request to the access log, and with that information you can go into the session, which is better visible in the access log, and you can follow a user throughout his session and then look into the error log where he triggered alerts. Because in the beginning this might be false positives until you've tuned them away and you get a good understanding of how your application works. And then once you get the hang of it, then you really know all the alerts in here will be real attacks and real attackers that you want to block. And of course, When you block in the WAF, this might give you the feeling that you're now 100% protected and you no longer have to fix your vulnerabilities in the application. But that is a false sense of security. The WAF is not holistic in a sense. It cannot protect you from everything. It is a first line of protection that takes out like 90-95% of the attacks. But a dedicated attacker with a lot of time at his hands and who's really committed to bring you down is always able to work around a web application firewall, just because the technology is not able to protect you 100%. So you really need to work on your application to have secure code, but the WAF buys you time, and it forces away all the low-level attackers, the one that don't have the dedication or the knowledge to really do bypasses against your web application firewall.
So,
Would you?
Go ahead, Tanya, sorry.
That's okay. Would you consider this a defense in depth mechanism, sort of like multi-layers, and this would be one layer?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is supposed to be like the first layer. But when we don't talk about network security, so from the application perspective, that would be the first layer of defense, and then the application defends itself again.
Would you? So it's not something that you just turn on and forget about. You actually have to go back and review the logs, see where anything was triggered, and then go back to your application and correct it.
Okay. The historical experience with the Corel set was it's a pain in the ass and it kills your application because of the false positives. You switch it on and your application stops to work. And with the CRS 3 release, we made a CRS for the rest of us. So for the 99% of admins who want to enable this, and it should more or less work out of the box. And that's what it does. There will be false positives off and on, but 90% of the application will continue to work. But then yes, you have to go back, you have to check the logs a bit and keep an eye on it and watch for false positives. So I would not enable this on a Friday afternoon before your holidays. Don't do that. Okay. But there are ways of configuring this, easing in, where you don't enable it 100% from the start, or you raise your anomaly limit fairly high, so you see all the alerts, but no customer is blocked. So you can really protect yourself from bad experience or protect your customers from an overly aggressive WAF. And then once you have tuned away the false positives, so you have taken out individual rules from the configuration because they cause a lot of false positives, they're a lot of pain, and you take them out, retaining the other 90% of the rules. And once that works, you can think about enabling additional rules. And Franziska hasn't touched on this, but this is the concept of paranoia levels. What you have now, or what we have now in front of Pixie, is the default installation on paranoia level 1. And this indicates a good set of strong rules, and they have a very good understanding of what is a malicious traffic and what is a benign request. There are more aggressive rules that tend to cause more false positives, and they are not enabled by default. But when you feel familiar with your application and you want a higher level of security and reassurance, then you can enable those, invest more time into the tuning, and achieve a higher level of protection. So it's entirely in the hands of the administrator how she or he wants to configure the application or the web application firewall.
And how much, would you say you need a committed professional to manage your WAF, or can it be a part-time thing, or how much resources?
I mean, it takes, honestly, it takes a bit of experience. So anybody with some understanding of HTTP and Docker and a web server can enable this. But then it is a bit of a slow start, and you have to find your way around, and ModSecurity can be a bit tricky. we try to provide you with good documentation, but it takes a bit of time to get up to speed. But afterwards, it's easy possible for a single person to run like 50 or 100 applications in parallel. So Franziska and I worked together at Swiss Post, where they had like 2 people in operating, running over 100 online services. So that's perfectly doable. But the first one will, in the first weeks, probably take half of your day's work for the first week or 2, when you have done this for the first time. I've tuned an online service, a very tricky one today, down to 0 false positives, and that was like 3 or 4 hours of work for me. And that was really a hard application with a lot of free-form entrance. So when people are allowed to enter a lot of text themselves, and that was actually an email application. So people will type emails or copy-paste computer code into an email. And of course, that can cause all sorts of false alerts and false attacks, because ModSecurity will think, hey, this is a PHP attack, when it's only 2 PHP developers exchanging emails. So there was a lot of false positives, and I took a couple of hours to tune them all away. So that is all. It's really doable, and it's not as bad as you might expect it to be.
We have a question from...
Sorry.
No. If you're going to keep answering, I'll wait to ask the question from the audience after. You first.
Okay. Of course, I also added the ModSecurity and the Coral set in my new company.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my job is to add security everywhere, and that's why I also add Web Application Firewalls. And I added the Web Application Firewall for one service at Puzzle ITC. And the next day I came into the office and someone told me, oh, I've already written 3 ModSecurity tuning rules. And that was really great, because I think he had no knowledge before. He had documentation written by Christian Folini on netnea.com, and he tuned the WAF, and yeah, it was just great. When he said that he had already done the work, and he had no experience.
You came in late, or when did you arrive at the office?
In the morning. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's doable. Yeah.
Yeah. Franziska, could you show the documentation on the NEA website, so people get a certain idea of how we document or how we did this?
Oh,
so
can I ask the question from the audience first before I forget to ask it?
Sure, go ahead.
So the question is if my website is a spa, can the core rule set be used to protect my REST web API? So I don't know what they mean by SPA, S-P-A, like all capital, but can a WAF be used to protect REST web APIs?
Okay. The question is, what do you expect, or where do you see the weaknesses of the API? APIs are nice because they're a lot more restricted than a standard browser or web application. So you have just a very limited amount of requests that are really well defined. And everything outside this blueprint will be denied by the API gateway. But, sorry, but if within the API you actually do have the standard weaknesses or application security risks, as with the OWASP Top 10, then the WAF brings the same amount of reassurance than to a standard web application. So I think you get a head start with the API, because that's better from the beginning. But then if you really want a high security level, then the Web Application Firewall or the core rule set in front will give you that higher level of reassurance. Cool. And I'm working on a project with a large Swiss customer who wants to have CRS in front of all his APIs. And that's what we're putting in place now.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Okay, please show us the documentation.
So This is nania.com. That's my company's website, and this is where we host kind of the official documentation for the core rule set. This is a curriculum of 12, I like to say, canonical tutorials that start really at the basement, like compiling Apache. There is also a series of Nginx tutorials, but I prefer the Apache ones a bit more because it's a bit easier to explain things with Apache. And then it goes all the way up to install the encryption, extend your logging, and then enable ModSecurity, and then include the OWASP ModSecurity core rule set. And then finally, tutorial number 8, which is the essential one, is how do you get rid of all these false positives. And in this tutorial number 8, there is an extensive exercise with real-world data where I guide you through the process of tuning away false positives. So you don't have to install CRS to get a good training or to get real-world experience with it. You can actually go to nania.com and work your way through these tutorials and get used to real-world problems with running CRS. And afterwards, you're perfectly ready to do this on your application, being it a standard web application or an API.
Cool. Will you share this link with us so we could put it out after? Share it with everyone? Awesome. We can tweet it and then we can put it in the show notes as well when we upload the video so everyone has it.
So Christian, you also wrote a book about ModSecurity, the ModSecurity Handbook. Mm-hmm. Is that, would you recommend to start with that, to go through the website for the tutorial first? What's in the book compared to what you just showed us in the documentation?
Is the editor in this program? She's not, is she? No, don't start with the book. No. Too complicated.
Okay, so who's the book for?
Yeah. The book is the ModSecurity Handbook. It is a reference handbook that talks all about ModSecurity, about the basics. It teaches you how ModSecurity works internally, how to write ModSecurity rules yourself. What we did before, Franziska did, she installed the core rule set. She didn't write any rules. She would just take it out of the box and put it on the server. And that's a lot easier. But then, of course, when you want to write your own rules, when you want to join the CRS project and provide additional rules, future rules, then you would need the handbook. But I'd say for 90% of the people, the handbook would be too large. It's too detailed. That's too much base level. That's not what a lot of people are in for. I mean, they're DevOps people. They have an application. They want to run it and give us the advanced security in front of it without understanding 100% of all the details of ModSecurity. But yeah, if you really want to, then I will not hold you back from buying the book.
Sure.
And it was fun writing it. I mean, it's not a bad book. I really enjoyed the book, but people usually stop using ModSecurity before they have finished the book. Honestly.
So I think I also read that CRS works on other WAF, not only ModSecurity. There are other compatible WAF. Is that correct?
Oh, that is a wide field. Yeah. So. Yeah, let me explain this a bit. So ModSecurity is the engine. Traditionally, ModSecurity was an Apache module. So at its inception in 2002, ModSecurity was an Apache module. Later on, there were ports to IIS and also Nginx. So the engine basically works on the major web servers nowadays around. But then the core rule said that's only the rules, and they happen to be written in the ModSecurity rule language, which is a bit hard to read and hard to write, but it's not entirely limited to ModSecurity. All that you need is a parser for that rule language, and other people have done that for other projects. So there are multiple implementations. ModSecurity is definitely the most well-known or the most widespread ones, the most all-purpose one. but there are Lua implementations around. There are a couple of proprietary implementations around. There are CDNs, so content delivery networks, that use parts of the core rule set. They have forked core rule set or taken out some of the rules and integrated in their own rule engine. So that is fairly dynamic. And what we're trying to do is building an abstraction layer above. That is a very slow project, but it's also a big aim to get away from this complicated rule language into a much easier meta language, where you could express your rules more easily, and then you would do an export filter into the ModSecurity rule language, arriving at what we have already, or do a different export filter into native Java code. And then you would get a Java input validation layer. Very easy to integrate it into your code, or for PHP or ASP.NET, whatever it is. And that's possibly future direction. We started with the project is a bit dragging, so it's not right around the corner, honestly. But other people have done, they have taken a core rule set and really integrated it into their commercial web application firewall products. So if you look at that market, globally maybe a 50, 80 or 100 commercial products. And in my experience, there are quite a few that actually admit they're running ModSecurity under the hood. And there's a far bigger amount of commercial products that don't admit running ModSecurity under the hood. So they're usually marketing themselves as artificial intelligence, next generation, bleeding edge WAF. But when you look closer, it's actually an outdated ModSecurity installation with very good documentation. So, and I've definitely come across this, and I've consulted customers, or I consulted web application firewall companies doing this. So they wanted to understand what they're actually running under the hood, but their leaflets are not talking about ModSecurity at all.
Wow, yeah.
There's much more fancy marketing.
Yeah, fancy is a good word. So let's say that you work somewhere and the framework that your software developers are using has a 0-day in it, or it has a vulnerability in it that's being exploited in the wild, and you know that you can't patch all your apps right away. Would you be able to create some sort of virtual WAF if you knew what the attacks looked like? Like, do you remember when there was the struts? There were 3 really bad struts vulnerabilities, and then there was also that vulnerability within NPM recently. Would we be able to create some sort of regular expression of our own to protect against it if we needed to?
Okay, chances are that CRS in the default installation is protecting you already.
Oh, wow.
With a lot of CVs that are coming out, really protect you out of the box. Because a 0-day follows certain patterns. It's an SQL injection, it's a cross-site scripting attack, etc., etc. And CRS, the core rule set, gives you generic protection against things that smell like an SQL injection. So 90% or 95 or 99% of the SQL injections are covered by CRS out of the box. So chances are you're already protected with a basic CRS installation. Next one is if you put in the more aggressive rules, the higher paranoia level rules, that means you need to tune this more, you have more false positives. But when you have done that work, the chances are now really, really high that the CV is no longer affecting you. Definitely all the strut stuff that came out in recent years, or all the ones that we looked at, didn't we, Franziska? At higher paranoia levels, we have them all.
Oh, really? That's so amazing.
Yeah, but then let's assume there is something that is not covered.
Yeah.
But there is a pattern in it. It's ASCII somehow code, and then you can definitely write a rule. If it's HTTP, you can write a ModSecurity rule against it. This is where the book comes in handy, honestly. Or you join us on Twitter, or you come to the OWASP Slack channel. We have a core rule set channel there. This is where we hang out, and you ask there for support in writing rules. There is the core rule set mailing list or the ModSecurity user list. This is where people hang out and help you writing your own rules if you don't have much experience with that. And writing a rule against a specific attack is actually fairly easy, because you have the pattern and you have the keyword, and if these two keywords appear together in the request, then it's an attack. That is simple. What is actually difficult, and which makes it difficult to write good core rule set rules, is you want to have them generic without causing false positives.
Yeah.
So the rules that we're delivering should work across the globe and all sorts of application without killing them. And that is actually tricky business, and it takes a lot of regular expression experience that I lack, but Franziska has, and other people in the project, they're very advanced with writing good regular expressions. And often down, we have false positives, or we have a false negative where somebody worked his way around one of our rules specifically, and then we need to update the rules or write new rules for new attack that bypass the CRS. But the standard zero-day exploit against the standard web application, CMS, WordPress, Drupal, most of the time we have you covered.
That's amazing.
We like to think of the core rule set give you a baseline security. Okay. This is what everybody should be running. If you have real customer data that you want to protect, or if you're a bank or a nuclear power plant, then you probably want to run in a higher paranoia level. And this altogether will buy you time. So there is a CV coming out, or a zero-day exploit coming out in the middle of the night, and you don't have to rush to the office. But you have a couple of hours to take it easier. You can look at it carefully the next day, because chances are Web Application Firewall has us covered, and this buys you time to give a good response, considered response, look at your application, patch the application to be really on a good level again. It's a first response against an attack, and if it is installed, it does the work for you.
That's awesome.
That's good.
I guess the only answer here is to go get a WAF.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
one.
Download it immediately. You saw how quick that was.
I feel like maybe we should put one in front of our website, devslop.co. Maybe that could be a future episode, us implementing ModSecurity. Do either of you have more things that you would like to tell us about the Core Rule Set project? Like, for instance, if someone wanted to get involved, how they would do it, or, for instance, show your website?
Can I share the screen again?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you see the screen now?
Yep.
Is that okay? Good. Our website is coralset.org.
Nice.
This is where the links are to the documentation on ENEA, which you saw before. We're running a blog. We have monthly news coming out. And we also have high resolution release poster. That's a very famous release poster we made for CRS 3. It's modeled after a movie poster. We had a lot of fun in there. And you see, here is Franziska's name, and here am I. I'm also in the top right corner, by the way.
I love the poster. It's gorgeous.
Okay, and there, from there we can go to GitHub, where we run our project. And what I want to show you is not the 160 open issues, but what we have here is tagged as good first issues. So when you're interested in supporting this project or get involved, there is a tag, good first issue, where we prepared issues and have them laying around a bit for newbies that want to write easy rules or update existing rules and help us out a bit.
That's awesome. That's so inclusive. Like, that makes it really easy for someone to join you.
Yeah, that's the whole plan. That's how we got 10 or 12 developers now. There's so many of these open source projects where one or two miserable guys hang around and hope people would join them. And we really made major priority to be accessible, have good documentation. We hang out on Slack, and we try to help out people. We have students working at universities about or with our tool, trying this out, gauging the security level of the core rule set, and we have lots of people use it at work and think, hey, we're not protected 100%. There are a few gaps, or I've seen attacks bypassing the core rule set. We need to improve the rule set. We need additional rules. And when I'm going to write this for my company, I want to share with the core rule set community so other companies can benefit as well. So that's how most of the project team members came to the project. And that helps us a lot because these are real people that are fighting attackers every day. And they have very different backgrounds and different companies. So there is web hosting involved, there is people running blogs, there are people running CMS systems, different types of services, online applications, and they see different types of attacks. And together we're writing really interesting new rules, and we're constantly expanding the rule set and updating it. I think this week we have added several hundred unit tests for our test suite. So we're sure that the rules are really doing what we expect them to do. Yeah, it's really an active project. It's really cool to be part of it. And I recommend everybody join us.
Awesome. There was a question in the chat, and then the person went to the FAQ and found the answer. And they're like, this documentation's good. They wanted to know if they could install it on Windows. And they're like, oh, I can do it on IIS. This is great. Never mind. Thanks. So good work.
I also have a comment for Franziska. It says, lovely tool you got there, Franziska. A few DDoS related vulnerabilities were recently discovered by some dev. Not familiar with that.
Yeah.
Have you made much progress with the mitigation techniques?
That was addressed to Franziska? Or yes. Should I?
Well, they said, lovely tool you got there, Franziska. So I guess for the project, whoever wants to answer.
Can I answer it, Christian?
I should? Okay, good. So Samdev, who's a security researcher, opened several CVEs against a project with a regular expression denial of service tag or type of attacks. What is that? We're obviously based on detecting attacks with the help of regular expressions. Now, you love them or you hate them, but it boils down to complicated regular expressions can lead to a lot of CPU consumption. And if you're not paying attention to it, it can happen that a specifically crafted payload can send your CPU to nirvana because of your regular expression that leads to too many hits. It's fairly complicated to express, but imagine we have rules that run with regular expressions over several thousand characters wide. So these rules are screen-filling size. And now if you were crafting a specific payload to take out the rule, to kill the CPU running this rule, that is actually possible unless the rule is very smart. And there are a couple of rules which are not very smart for historical reasons. So as I said, the project is 12 years old. New management came in like 3 years ago, and we're dragging old rules that we're only cleaning as we go by. And we were aware there were a couple of them that were problematic, but we didn't get around to fixing them. And now we've eaten public CVEs. Web application always have an denial of service problem, and now we also have one. What is peculiar here is, from the 5 CVEs that were reported, only one of them is real, and they're only real on ModSecurity 3 on the Nginx platform. So now we're getting quite specific here. So a standard Apache ModSecurity installation wouldn't have this problem. None of the 5, and Nginx on ModSecurity 3.0 actually has 1 of the 5. So you could say 4 of the 5 CVEs are not real. So if they're not real, how did they come to be? They came to be that the researcher took the regular expression and tested the raw regular expression without the Web Application Firewall. So he extracted the regular expression and tried to exploit it, and that worked nicely. But he did not take the self-defense of the web server in consideration, or that Nginx or ModSecurity would not fall for all of these attack types. But still, the regular expression isn't very good, and one of them is actually exploitable on Nginx ModSecurity 3.0 CRS 3.1. So that can be exploited, and we're working on that. Now, the problem solving this is, of course, it's a regular expression 1,000 characters wide in some of the cases, and that is tough regular expression. And we don't want to repair it and losing part of the protection. And we could simplify the regular expression, but then we would expose our users to different attack forms. So that's not what we want. We want to have exactly the same behavior without the regular expression denial of service weakness. And that is quite tough. Yeah. That's why we're actually taking a long time to fix it. The researcher went public before he told us. He could have told us before, but he didn't. And we're still trying to work way around this. We have on the CoralSet website, we have an extensive blog post on the problem where we discuss all the 5 CVEs, what is a REDOS, how are we dealing with it, where is the real problem, and what can you do until you really covered. And what you will need to do is you disable the 2 rules that are
affected,
that are problematic, and then you are protected even on Nginx ModSecurity.
Oh, that's good.
So a CV is hard. I mean, it's not the best thing to have, but we want to get this 100% clean and over with. That's why we're taking our time. And then a regular expression denial of service attack is quite sophisticated. And I'm sure there are additional denial of service attacks vectors for most online applications. And if that is your biggest denial of service problem, then good for you. But I guess your search form or your login form has even bigger issues than this. That's why we think we're legitimate to say, no, we don't pushing out a quick fix. We solve this 100%, and then we're going to release a new version. And this is hopefully next week or the week afterwards. So that's our time horizon now. We have most of it solved now, but we're not 100% happy with the results so far.
Cool.
Good. I'll share the link that you of the blog post in the chat.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. So I just noticed we are over an hour, and usually we wrap up in about an hour. So it is time to wrap up. Franziska, did you have anything last that you wanted to say? Because we asked if there's anything else, and I noticed that Christian answered and then you didn't answer, but you're on the same team. Maybe he had the answer you would have given. Do you have anything you'd like to add? No?
Maybe we can show more, maybe my pipeline or so in one of the next shows.
Yeah.
We automate testing of the WAF in a pipeline, maybe?
I'd love that. Yes, that would be fantastic.
And yeah, I'm just happy to be part of the DevSlop project and of course of the CoralSet project. Great work with such amazing people and such a great community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
We're very happy to have Franziska. She did some of the coolest regular expressions we have.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Christian.
Well, Nancy, did you have any questions you wanted to close out with?
No, just thank you to our guests. It was really enlightening. I know about WAF on a high level, so that was really, really helpful. And thank you.
Yay! Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Dr. Christian Folini, and Franziska Bühler, and Nancy Gariché, and I'm Tanya Janca, and all together we are the OWASP DevSlop project and a lot of the core rule set project. So thank you again. This was part of the Open Web Application Security project. And I guess we're 2 or 3 projects all working together, and it's pretty awesome towards the common goal of making sure our software systems are secure. Go us! Nancy, do you have any? Yeah, let's do the. Do you want to do the wave goodbye?
Yes.
Let's do the wave goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.